Hello everyone, and welcome back to the 3T Path channel, and welcome back to our Uddhava-gita course. And this is our 40th Uddhava-gita class, so there's already 39 Uddhava-gita classes recorded, available to you if you become a member of this channel. Become a member of this channel, instructions are here in the description of the video. If you become a member of the channel, you can access the whole course, and this is the only complete Uddhava-gita course available in the internet. So make sure you spread the news, invite your friends, and they can all participate. The Uddhava-gita is such a beautiful, powerful, amazing text. Not so many people understand it or heard of it, and it really is life-changing. And I'm sure if you've been here from the beginning, you know, and we have a lot more to go. We probably have like another 200 and some classes to go. So there's a lot of material to cover. And right now we are in chapter 11 of the 11th canto, which is a powerful chapter because this is Krishna beginning his teachings to Uddhava. So he's giving Uddhava some very basic, very powerful instructions. And today we'll be talking about the supremacy of the Krishna Balarama aspect of God. Krishna himself is going to say that. And we're going to be talking about the dynamics of Bhakti Yoga, classic dynamics of Bhakti Yoga. So we're going to have a good class today. So let's get started. We are again in the 11th canto, 11th chapter, starting now on verse 20. So Krishna says, "My dear Uddhava, an intelligent person should never take to literatures that do not contain descriptions of my activities, which purify the whole universe. Indeed, I create, maintain, and annihilate the entire material manifestation. Among my Leela incarnations, the most beloved are Krishna and Balarama. Any so-called knowledge that does not recognize these activities of mine is simply barren and is not acceptable to those who are actually intelligent." So here, there's so many different God in the Vedic tradition, that's the beauty of it. It's so many different Leela forms, so many different expansions of God, and so people get confused. And in fact, there's a general confusion, and people, oh, it's Hinduism, and they got confused. It's all one thing. It's nothing. It's just Brahman, and people get confused. But actually, the form of God is supremely important. So the Bhagavan form, the form of, the transcendental form of personality, that is the highest aspect of God. And of the innumerable Bhagavan forms, there are ones higher than others. And here Krishna is saying himself, the Krishna Balaram, the Radha Krishna, Krishna Balaram, the Vrindavan Leela, this is the highest of all. So when you're having access to Srimad Bhagavatam, when you have access now, and this is of course Uddhava-gita, is at the crown jewel of the Bhagavatam as well. And when you have access to this, then you can understand how Krishna is the supreme form, the supreme Leela, and Krishna is saying it himself here. The most beloved are Krishna and Balarama. So this is the highest level. So don't get confused with the plurality of forms, of Bhagavan forms, and what to speak of the plurality of different devas in the material world, which don't compare to God himself, and then the different aspects of God, Brahman, Paramatma, Bhagavan. There's a lot of information, so you can get lost. But if you want to regain your focus and set your compass straight, Krishna. Put Krishna in the north, Balaram, Krishna Balaram in the north, Radha Krishna, actually. You put that in your, focus that on your compass. That's the way to go. That's the highest, the sweetest, the most beloved form of God. And you can access that through Bhagavatam so beautifully. So, very important. Now, once you have understood and you start meditating on one specific Bhagavan form, which you should, and not just have a general thing, but once you have a specific Bhagavan form of your inner worship, then what happens? You absorb your mind in that form. In the Yoga Sutras, Patanjali talks about choosing your form, when he mentions your chosen deity, that's what he's talking about. your chosen deity. So what is it? Is it going to be Krishna Balarama? Is it going to be Sita Ram? Is it going to be Lakshmi Narayan? Is it going to be, Nrsinga, Lakshmi Nrsinga? What is going to be your, Ishta Devata, your chosen Deva? Well, this is it. This is how you do it. And if you study, if you're actually intelligent according to Krishna, you will fix your mind on Radha Krishna, Krishna Balaram, on Vrindavan Leelas, because you're the sweetest, the best, the highest, maybe Dwaraka Leelas as well. But you'll focus your mind on this aspect. This will be your Ishta Devata, this will be your focus. And then you start absorbing your mind by hearing about these topics, by absorbing your mind, by hearing, chanting, passing it onwards, absorbing your mind. And this is the essence of Bhakti Yoga. And this is what Krishna is going to say now. Text 21, verse 21. Let me read the purport to 20 first. The words Lila Vatare Psita Jamna are very significant here. The Lord's incarnation for executing wonderful pastimes is called Lila Avatar. And such wonderful forms of Vishnu are glorified by names Ramachandra, Nrsinghadeva, Kurma, Varaha, and so on. Among all such Lila avatars, however, the most beloved even to this day is Lord Krishna, the original source of Vishnu Tattva. The Lord appears in the prison house of Kamsa and is immediately transferred to the rural settings of Vrindavan, where he exhibits unique childhood pastimes. With his cowherd boyfriends, girlfriends, parents, and well-wishers. After some time, the Lord's pastimes are transferred to Mathura and Dwaraka, and the extraordinary love of the inhabitants of Vrindavana is exhibited in their anguished separation from Lord Krishna. Such Leelas of the Lord are Ipsita, or the reservoir of all loving exchanges with the Absolute Truth. The pure devotees of the Lord are most intelligent and expert and do not pay any attention to useless, fruitless literatures that neglect the highest truth, Lord Krishna. Although such literatures are very popular among materialistic persons all over the world, they are completely neglected by the community of pure Vaishnavas. In this verse, the Lord explains that the literatures approved for the devotees are those that glorify the Lord's Leelas as the Purusha avatar and the Leela avatars, culminating in the personal appearance of Lord Krishna himself, as confirmed in Brahma Samhita 539. Ramadi Murti Shukala Niyamena Tishtan Nanavataram Akarod Bhuvaneshu Kintu Krishna Swayam Samabhavat Paramapamamyo Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who manifested himself personally as Krishna and the different avatars in the world in the forms of Rama, Nrsimha, Vamana, etc., as his subjective portions. Even Vedic literatures that neglect the Supreme Personality of Godhead should be ignored. This fact was also explained by Narada Muni to Srila Vyasadeva, the author of the Vedas, when the great Veda Vyas felt dissatisfied with his work. Of course, it should be mentioned here, we're not suggesting that you never again pick up any piece of literature because it's not about Krishna. No. This is in terms of your spiritual focus, your religion, your studies, your actual spiritual practice. These texts you study should be connected to, the Bhagavan forms, and of course Krishna especially. This will give you the most benefit. But of course, I'm not saying you should never read a Dostoevsky, or Philip Roth. That's not it. It's not that you should be an ignorant person and never read literature, Jane Austen. No, we're not saying that. We're just saying that in terms of spiritual literature, this is the topmost. It's about establishing the supremacy, really. This is the topmost, and you should make sure this is at the top of your studies, of your contemplation, of your source of knowledge, goals, prioritization. This should be at the top. That's what this is saying. Okay, verse 21. Coming to this conclusion of all knowledge, one should give up the false conception of material variety that one imposes upon the soul, and thus cease one's material existence. The mind should be fixed on me, Krishna is saying, since I am all-pervading. Now we're getting to the essence of Bhakti Yoga. So once you understand the conclusion of all this knowledge, this spiritual knowledge, these topics, when you're doing your spiritual studies, you use spiritual texts and you focus your mind, you're trying to understand reality, the soul, God. So, you went all the way up to these beautiful literatures on Krishna and Balarama, on Vrindavan. So now what happens then? One should give up the false conception of material variety that one imposes upon the soul. In other words, you should stop with the material conception of life. Doesn't mean you're going to disappear or go to some cave or go crazy. No, you're going to continue with your life, your house and your job and your family, but you just don't think, you don't identify yourself exclusively and only with this material reality. You now understand, I am Atman. Not only that, I am a servant, a loving servant of Krishna and Balarama, of Radha and Krishna. That is my nature. And I'm here in this body because of my past foolishness. But now, I'm going to use all this as an offering to Krishna and Balarama, Radha Krishna. So you understand your position. So by giving up the false conception of material variety, so you're no longer just identifying matter and the varieties of matter and the varieties of bodies you had as the ultimate reality. You understand these are a secondary reality, and you're the observer, right? We talked about this in the last class. You're the observer, you're not the doer. So now you're situated correctly in your spiritual realization. Now, because of this, now your mind should be fixed on me, Krishna is saying. Why? Because I am all-pervading. Actually, Krishna is everywhere, and everything is Krishna. And Krishna makes this point, like everything is in me. This is a topic throughout the Bhagavatam. God is always saying that I am in everyone. Everyone is in me. I am in everything. Everything is in me. Not that I'm lost. No, you still have the form. You still have Krishna and Balaram, Vrindavan, Radha Krishna. You have all those things as well. So Krishna says in Bhagavad-gita, everything is in me. I am in everything, and yet I am still apart. So there's still Krishna. You can go to Goloka Vrindavan, and there will be Krishna. And yet everything is in him, and he is in everything, and yet he is also there separately. So that's the infinite aspect of God. That's how God can have form and still be infinite. Because people are like, oh no, if we talk about God, it must be like Brahman, just energy. Because otherwise it would be limited. No, because Krishna's form isn't like a material form that gets limited. His form is infinite, because he can be there and here and everywhere at the same time. And even there, he's simultaneously with everyone at the same time. Like famously, the rasa dance, the gopis are dancing with Krishna in the autumn moonlight. And every gopi thinks Krishna is dancing with her. They all have the same experience. No, Krishna dancing with me. If you were to take okay, what happened? If you were to take a report on what happened tonight, witness report, what happened? Give me your description of what happened. Everyone was saying, no, Krishna was with me the whole night. But he said, no, but she said he was with her all night. That's what happened. No, he was with me, I'm sure of it. I could see that he wasn't with anybody else, just with me. But then the other gopi is like, no. He was with me all night, and I could see you. So that's Krishna's power. That's the power of God. We can't do that. A material body can't do that. Krishna can do that. So Krishna's body is infinitely expanding and powerful. God can be in infinite forms. One God. Monotheism. We're monotheists. Don't get confused. Don't think this like, oh, there's so many devas. No, there are material devas, plural, little d, small g gods. Yeah, sure, the god of sun, light, the whole Greek pantheon, the whole Nordic, yeah, you get that, that's something else. Asgard, that's something else. That's material incarnations of people, just souls like you and me. So there's a lot of those. But there's only one God, monotheist. But that one God expands in so many different forms and has so many different aspects. And that's why you have to, at some point in your spiritual journey, you must focus your mind on one. And that's why Krishna is saying here, Krishna and Balarama, he's giving you the tips of, like, just do it on me. Do it on Krishna and Balarama. This is the most beloved. And it's actually the highest. And if you study why, the reasons, is the form. Krishna's to Bhagavan Swayam. Krishna's the source, the highest, where you have the most sweetness, the most aspects of God. It can be found in Krishna. And that's why in Vrindavan, the sweetest, most intimate realm of God. Most highest of all. So once you do that, you should fix your mind on me, Krishna says, because I'm all pervading. Purport. Although in previous verses, Lord Krishna has described the lifestyle and approach of the impersonal philosophers who meditate on the distinction between matter and spirit, the Lord here rejects the path of jnana, which is just like thinking, like philosophizing, or speculation, and comes to the final conclusion, bhakti yoga. The path of jnana is interesting only to one who does not know the Lord Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as stated in Bhagavad-gita 7:19. Bahunam janmanam ante jnanavamam prapadyate vasudeva sarvam iti samahatma sudurlabha. The word vasudeva sarvam iti. So this verse is saying, like, the person full of jnana, jnanavan, finally, after many lifetimes, he comes to understand him. Vasudeva sarvam. Vasudeva is everything, which Krishna just mentioned here, are similar to the word sarvadge found in this verse. One should know why the personality of Godhead is all-pervading. The first verse of Srimad Bhagavatam states, Janmadi asya yata. The Supreme Lord is the source of everything. And as stated in the previous verse of this chapter, he creates, maintains, and annihilates everything. Thus the Lord is not all-pervading in the manner of air and sunlight. Rather, the Lord is all-pervading as the absolute controller who holds in his hands the destiny of every living entity. Everything is ultimately an expansion of Krishna, and therefore there is really no other object of meditation besides Krishna. Meditation upon any other object is also meditation on Krishna, but is imperfectly performed, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita by the words avidhi purvakam. The Lord also states in Bhagavad Gita that all living entities are on the path back home, back to Godhead. Because of ignorance, however, some of them go backward or stop along the way, foolishly thinking that their journey is finished, when in fact they're suspended in one of the minor potencies of the Supreme Lord. If one wants to intimately understand the nature of the Absolute Truth, one must take the path of love of Godhead, as stated in Bhagavad Gita 18:55. Bhaktyamam abhijanati yavanyas-chasmi tatvatam tattamam tatvato gyatva vishate tadanantaram. One can understand the Supreme Personality as he is only by bhakti. And when one is in full consciousness of the Supreme Lord by such bhakti, one can then enter the kingdom of God. It's a beautiful verse. The words Nanatva Brahman in this verse indicate false identification with the gross and subtle material bodies. The word Brahman indicate a mistake. It can also mean wandering or rotating. The conditioned living entity, because of his mistake of falling into Maya, into illusion, is wandering through a succession of material bodies. Sometimes appearing as a demigod, one of those devas, small d, small g gods, and sometimes as a worm in stool. The word uparameta means that one should stop such fruitless wandering and fix one's mind on the absolute truth, the Supreme Lord, who is the true object of everyone's love. Such a conclusion is not sentimental, but is the result of keen analytic intelligence, jigyasya. Thus, after elaborately explaining to Uddhava many aspects of analytic knowledge, the Lord now comes to the ultimate conclusion, Krishna consciousness, pure love of Godhead. Without such love, there is no question of eternally fixing one's mind on the Lord. Quoting from the Viveka, Srila Madhvacharya states that Nanatva Brahman indicates the following illusions. Considering the living entity to be the supreme, considering all living entities to be ultimately one entity without separate individuality. 3. Considering all living entities to be ultimately one entity, considering that there are many gods. 4. Thinking that Krishna is not God. 5. And considering that the material universe is the ultimate reality. All of these illusions are called Brahma, or mistakes, but such ignorance can be eliminated at once by chanting the holy names of Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Verse 22. My dear Uddhava, if you're not able to free your mind from all material disturbance and thus absorb it completely on the spiritual platform, then perform all your activities as an offering to me without trying to enjoy the fruits. So this is exactly the order in Bhagavad-gita. Krishna says, well, the best thing is just samadhi, where you just have your mind is completely absorbed in Krishna all the time. You just, that's it, nothing else is going on. But, we have our lives. We're not able to just sit there. We're not in a meditation. So what can we do then? We offer all our activities to Krishna. So that's what we do. We perform all our dharma, focus on Krishna. And that way our mind is always flowing towards Krishna throughout the whole day. As you're going through the day, following your dharma, taking care of your day-to-day life, your mind is always there with Krishna, and you're always with Krishna. You can feel Krishna's with you, you're with Krishna. You can feel that union, yoga, bhakti yoga, the yoga and devotion. You can feel that throughout the day as you go along your day. So that's the best thing for all of us to do. And of course, we're not trying to enjoy the fruits, because that means your mind is focused on the future. When you're acting not in the consciousness of Dharma and Bhakti, but you're just being a karmi, and that's the fantasy paradigm. That's what's, just brings us unlimited anxiety and, and frustration. So we don't want that. We don't want to be karmis, we want to be yogis, we want to be bhakti yogis. So karma yogis, where we're using all our karma to offer to Krishna in love and bhakti. So we're, it's all one thing, karma yoga, but actually it's bhakti yoga, because you're doing it as love for Krishna. You're focusing your mind on Krishna. Purport. If one offers one's activities to Lord Krishna without trying to enjoy the results, one's mind becomes purified. When the mind is purified, transcendental knowledge automatically manifests, and such knowledge is a byproduct of pure consciousness. When the mind is absorbed in perfect knowledge, it can be raised to the spiritual platform, as described in Bhagavad-gita, verse 1854. Brahma bhuta prasanatmana sochati na kankshati sama sarvishu bhuteshu mad bhaktim labate param. One who is thus transcendentally situated at once realizes the Supreme Brahman. He never laments, nor desires to have anything. He is equally disposed to every living entity. In that state, he attains pure bhakti unto me. So it's very nice. So when you have this knowledge, you never lament, mind in the past. You never desire, mind in the future. So you're in the here and now. And you're fully absorbed in bhakti. Beautiful verse. By absorbing the mind in the transcendental form of Lord Krishna, one can surpass the stage of ordinary transcendental knowledge, by which one simply distinguishes oneself from the gross and subtle material bodies. Spiritually enriched by loving devotional service to the Lord, the mind is completely purified of all tinges of illusion. Through intense concentration on one's relationship with the personality of Godhead, one comes to the highest standard of knowledge and becomes an intimate associate of the personality of Godhead. By offering one's activity to the personality of Godhead, one purifies one's mind to some extent and thus comes to the preliminary stage of spiritual awareness. Yet even then, one may not be able to fix one's mind completely on the spiritual platform. At that point, one should realistically assess one's position, noting the lingering material contamination within the mind. Then, as stated in this verse, one should intensify one's practical devotional work in the service of the Lord. If one artificially considers oneself to be supremely liberated, or if one becomes casual on the path of spiritual advancement, there is serious danger of a fall down. According to Srila Jiva Goswami, the Lord previously explained to Uddhava Jnana Mishra Bhakti. So it's the path of Jnana Yoga mixed with Bhakti, Jnana Mishra Bhakti, or devotional service mixed with the impure desire to enjoy transcendental knowledge. In this verse, the Lord clearly reveals that the transcendental knowledge is an automatic byproduct of loving service to the Lord. And in the next verse, the Lord begins his explanations of pure bhakti, which is completely sufficient for self-realization. The desire to enjoy spiritual knowledge is certainly a material desire, since the goal is one's personal satisfaction and not the pleasure of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, Lord Krishna here warns Uddhava that if one is not able to fix one's mind in trance on the spiritual platform, then one should not go on simply theoretically discussing what is Brahman and what is not Brahman. Rather, one should engage in practical bhakti to the Lord. And then spiritual knowledge will automatically awaken in one's heart, as stated in Bhagavad-gita 10:10. Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mamupayanti te. Those who are constantly devoted and worship me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. Very important verse. Similarly, in the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Lord Brahma warns that one should not neglect the auspicious path of bhakti and instead take up the useless labor of mental speculation. By mere philosophical speculation, one cannot fix one's mind on the spiritual platform. Many great philosophers throughout history had abominable personal habits, which proves that they could not fix themselves on the spiritual platform by mere speculation on philosophical categories. If one is not fortunate enough to have executed bhakti to the Lord in one's past life, and one is therefore addicted to mere speculation on the differences between matter and spirit, one will not be able to fix one's mind on the spiritual platform. Srila Jiva Goswami states that if one does not have faith in the personal form and activities of the personality of Godhead, one will not have the spiritual strength to remain perpetually on the transcendental platform. In this verse, the Lord is definitely bringing Uddhava and all living entities to the conclusion of all philosophy, pure devotional service to the Supreme Lord, Krishna. In this regard, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur points out that one who is bewildered by false ego may not want to offer his activities to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, even though this is the actual way of rising above the influence of the modes of material nature. Because of ignorance, one does not know that he is the eternal servant of Krishna and is instead attracted by the duality of material illusion. One cannot become free from such illusion by theoretical speculation. But if one offers one's work to the personality of Godhead, one will clearly understand his eternal transcendental position as the servant of the Lord. Very nice. So let's end here. Beautiful, powerful passages as we're now approaching that topmost spiritual facet of yoga, bhakti yoga. So it gets very elevated, very intense. This is the topmost, the most powerful practice you can fix your mind on. And we're talking about specifically the supremacy, the most beloved, Krishna and Balarama. So that's the path we're going to be focusing on in the next class. So have a rest of your day with lots of peace and lots of love. Hare Krishna.